I want to start.
Okay. Well, my name is Alyssa Rivera.
I'm Kristine, to left check.
And we will be interviewing Dr. Morrow for our adolescent psychology interview. So Dr. Morrow, have you ever observed acts of aggression, violence, or bullying in your years of teaching?
Yes, and you'll come across it because it's there. It's in adolescence, but even younger. You'll see these incidences of bullying, and it's kind of important that we identify that and make sure that it doesn't progress.
Was it common in?
I don't. I think it kind of depends actually on the school. There's some school environments where it has more of a feel of a community where the students really do respect each other, and then you don't see it quite so much. There are other schools that might be a little less focused on community building, and then you see it a little bit more. So,
did it differ between like suburbs versus like?
The ones where I in my years of teaching, the ones where I came across it most were more in urban schools where students might have had more of my students would have a little bit more disruptive kind of background where there was perhaps violence in the home, in their neighborhood, and it was a way to kind of establish who they were or whatever, rather than use of words that they could be either it could be very overt kind of bullying, or it could be very subtle too. So if you can do this psychological kind of bullying, which is even harder to kind of identify. So
right.
What were some common traits, if you observed any, in bullies or those who were bullied?
Usually, well, I don't want to generalize, but in some of the instances, bullies would have a group that they would kind of have as their backup kind of thing, and they kind of moved as kind of a troop, and there would be one point person that was kind of, but they had this element of having other people so it wasn't just one-on-one, it would be 3 or 4 or 5 on one. A lot of times they would target kids that were perhaps quiet or maybe looked a little different or had something different about that person. It might have been that they were new, or that they might have liked things that seemed a little different, like they might have been tech people, tech kids, rather than more run-of-the-mill. So, or it might be that they had braces or red hair, or it's like so anyway.
Would you say the ones that came in groups were more aggressive?
Probably more overtly aggressive. Again, the psychological bullying that I have seen is very subtle and very potent. And these kids often, it'll be things under the breath that they'll say to someone, even in passing. It can be very, very hard to notice as a teacher. And you might just notice what's happening because all of a sudden one kid just can't take it anymore, and he'll stand up in class and punch the other kid. It's like, well, what was that about? He said, well, he's just been, he's been just giving me a hard time and calling names, or accusing him or her of things. So and it can be that you didn't even hear that because it was just so subtle.
Yeah.
So.
What would you say was the difference between bullying in boys and bullying in girls?
No. Boys are usually more, a little more physical, a little forthright. Give me your lunch money. or I'll put you in the trash can or something or another. Where the girls, it'll be more typical where they'll be kind of in a clique or a small group, and they'll make fun of a girl's fashion perhaps, or the fact that she's not a cheerleader or something or another, and it's much more use of words, and whereas with guys, they're usually gonna throw you in the trash can or something or another, beat you up or whatnot. So the girls get the verbal kind of stuff, and again, not always. Not always. I've had settings where I've had girls that were pretty physical. Which was interesting to me because that's very different than my experience. But yeah, on the whole, so girls tend to be a little more verbal, a little more social kinds of pressure, and the boys are a little bit more physical. Although probably the worst kinds of one of the most egregious evidences of bullying were between two boys that I had that were in 5th grade, and it just was it was a verbal kind of thing, and just kind of prodding all the time and under the breath, and a person that it was very, very surprising that this happened, and but it just got to be so bad. It got to be so bad that the parents finally pulled, not only in my class but in other classes too, that the parents pulled the child out of school. So they just changed schools. So yeah.
Did the number of occurrences of bullying increase or decrease over the years?
Again, it seemed to vary more on the school setting. I think that there's been bullying going on since probably caveman days. It's like give me your brontosaurus or I'll club you over the head. It's just like So yeah, I think it's I don't know if it's more common. I don't really have a good feel on that. So there's some things that I feel are more common now than they were 30 years ago or 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Not I don't have so much a feel about this one. I think that it's consistent. So yeah, it's certainly something that we want to be aware of, and we'll work with our students, and especially middle school. They work very hard at trying to establish because middle school is so difficult anyway, because we're going through puberty and all that other kind of stuff. We're trying to fit in. All of a sudden, how we do school is different, and so most middle schools that I've ever worked with, that there was really a school-wide kind of initiative to address that and make sure that didn't get established. Sometimes when you get these patterns established, it's hard to go back in and change that, but you need to do that with bullying.